minutes before the finals of the 2013 Chicago Charities Paddle, and I'm here with Hall of Famer Alan Graham, who's watched the Chicago paddlescape grow over the last 25 years from a few hundred to a number of thousand. What do you think about that, Alan?
Yeah, that's right. We about 25 years ago we had 64 men's teams in our league, and now we have 284 men's teams. If you multiply that by 13 or 14, you get over 4,000 people playing in the men's. The ladies have grown from about 8 series to 16 in that period, and they have usually 10 people on a team, so they have 160 teams, and that's 1,600 ladies playing.
What do you attribute that to, having watched it unfold right before your very eyes?
Well, there's more, there are more tennis players getting involved in this sport now. At first, they weren't that interested in it, but now they've found out it's a great way to pass the winter when the courts aren't available outside for the tennis.
And I think, too, the job you did with that website from the beginnings to where it is now really piques interest for so many players. And to be able to get updated records and schedules and information, even how to call someone and play, I think that's been a big part, too.
Well, it has been. It's made it a very communal sport, and it's a very social sport with lots of mixed play, lots of kids activities, and we have a kids league during the week, and it's grown also because of the cooperation of all the clubs and the public facilities and the park districts.
And with the country club situation, 25 years ago, I don't believe there were any pros on the payroll of the clubs to teach platform tennis. It was strictly tennis in the summer, and then slowly, one by one, paddle came on board to the point now where it's 50% of the country club pros action, if not more.
That is correct, and I think all the facilities that have paddle courts now have an active pro, and obviously that's helped spread the sport and gotten the competitive level up significantly over the last 25 years.
So in closing, where do you see it going from here?
Well, it's continuing to grow. I expect next year that we'll have another 20 new courts with 5 new facilities, and that'll just add about another probably 40 teams, and we'll be over 300 teams in the men's league, and I would say probably at least one more series for the ladies.
Wow. Well, Alan, thanks for everything you've done with platform tennis, and good luck with the league down the stretch.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the Glenview Club in Gulf, Illinois for the finals of the 2013 Chicago Charities. My name is Rodney Workman, and alongside with Alex Benchilla and Peter Burka, we will be providing the color commentary for the match. We got slightly overcast skies, perfect paddle conditions, temperatures about 50. Alex, what do you think here?
Well, Rodney, I'm excited. These are the number 3 and 4 ranked teams in the country. It's a rematch of this year's national semifinals, and that match saw Lubao and the Rose win in straight sets for a bit of an upset. But you're going to get two contrasting styles. I think the key for Lubao and the Rose actually will be stamina. They're coming off of 2 grueling 3-set wins. 7-5 in the third set against Mark Johnson and Dane Schmidgel last night in the quarters, and 7-6 in the third set just about an hour and a half ago against Scott Estes and Mike Cochran. Because Peter Burka was talking earlier today about adjustments, and Lubao and the Rose do not adjust. They play the way they play. They're shot makers. They're always going to look to hit shots. And everybody watching, I think, will be in for a treat.
Super.
Peter, what do you think about Gambino and Broderick? What are the keys here?
Well, it's fast versus slow, and they're gonna DeRose and Lubao will play fast, just like that right there. Try to play quick points. Gambino and Broderick are gonna slow it down. To clarify with DeRose Lubao, they will make adjustments, small ones, but their style will generally stay the same. But they have very good IQs, so they know when to change something if they need to, but the style will remain the same.
Well, the first game's underway, and already a few unforced errors early, probably stiff from the semifinals. But to Alex's point, we had a 50-minute semifinal with Drew and Chris, and over 2 hours, 2.5 hours with Lubao and DeRose. So obviously advantage to Gambino and Broderick from having more gas in the tank right out of the chute.
40 all from Love 40, so Lubao and the Rose already had 3 straight break points to start off the match. It's back to 40 all. Who do you like in this one, Rodney?
I'm going with the traditional paddle team, a team that provides great lobbing with timely driving. It's got some sizzle when they need it. I'm going with Chris and Drew. And although the other team I haven't seen play as much, John and Steve are just relentless pressures. They keep the pressure on, steady drives, not as much lobbing, great drop shots, great hands, blitzings, touch, guile, cunning. So it's going to be a good match.
I think this is a straight-up coin flip. As far as I can't even give you my favorite. I think this is a very, very even matchup. DeRose and Lubao are extremely underrated at times. I mean, people know how good they are. They got the national final, but they come to play every match.
That was a great overhead he hit. Just that slow cutter up the middle, hits the bottom plank, the I-beam down there. Good length on the volley there. Not hitting it too hard in this game, as we know, is key. Have the right length, otherwise it comes off the back screen and point goes on.
Each of these teams have won one Chicago Charities title. Lubao and the Rose won it in 2008. Gambino Broderick won it in 2011. Obviously, Gambino, for those of you familiar with the sport, has won several, I believe 7 titles with the great Dave Ohlmuller.
And first game going to Chris and Drew on a missed drop shot. Missed it by a hair. We've got Howard Sipe up in the perch, calling the match, as is tradition here in Chicago. Howard's a Hall of Famer and has been doing this for decades.
Yeah, the points are at least starting out a little bit. They're starting out fast. I mean, they're Gambino and Broderick have swinging away a little bit. I think what I like to watch here too is what's going to be their game plan for placement of their overheads. I almost feel like sometimes there's players that want to induce the drive. They want it, so they just purposely will give a ball that is not an easy look, but definitely a medium look. And teams that play fast will take those medium looks and drive them, and they're looking to accelerate the play.
If you want to get more specific, I think the key for Gambino Broderick is to get Lubau and DeRose off the net. Lubau and DeRose are two of the best players in the game when they're on top of the net, and they're going to take your best drive and hit volley winners.
That's what I noticed, Alex, and a few times I've seen them. Their net skills are phenomenal. They can handle the heat, and they can kill you with the finesse. So it's tough when they build a wall up there.
Yeah, and that's where the match turned yesterday for, Mark Johnson and Dane Schmidgall started lobbing better, and it became a completely different match. And they came as close as 2 points away from winning that match just from simply lobbing better and getting DeRose Lubau off the net. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, the lob is such a huge shot at this level.
Well, you go back to one of the best axioms in all of sport is the best offense is a great defense, and the defense sets up the offense in this game. And the better you drive, the more good looks or good pitches you get to hit.
You just saw Steve DeRose right there giving up the net when he overhit when he overhit that serve. We feel that's one of the biggest changes that has happened in the game recently. And I personally learned that from the great Bill Fiedler, one of the best volleyers ever. And I was lucky enough to play with Bill a few years ago, a couple of tournaments, and he's one of the best volleyers that's ever played the game. And he told me, listen, you got to know your limits. When it's an obvious drive that you don't feel you can handle, give up the net. And I think you're going to see a lot of that today.
Fast action here. This is a good point.
Amazing point here. Pace is picking up. See if they try to slow it up, change the tempo. There it is.
Keep in mind that this is not the kind of pace, the fast tempo pace is not the type of pace that will favor Broderick Gambino.
I almost feel like they changed. They decided at least early on here to play fast, not minding it.
Peter, who would you say is the faster playing team in general here?
No, definitely DeRose Lubau. I mean, but almost, you can see it looks like a little bit like Drew's almost kind of liking it. He's getting into it, and he's like, I can play fast with you guys. And he's definitely holding his own.
Great rip. Yeah, that return serve behind the players, the real good volleyers to drive behind it is effective. If you hit it where they're supposed to be or where it's supposed to go, they're generally there to cut it off. So those are the ones that get through.
Similar to tennis and doubles, the best volleyers, the best doubles players will try to pinch the middle. So early on, going behind them down a line just to send a message, it's always a good idea.
And the one thing spin does, Drew's putting a lot of spin on his overheads. What that does is, when you put spin on the ball, as the backcourt player, you have to think defensively because you have to read the spin and you have to be able to get the ball back. So it almost starts to take away your offense a little bit, limits your offensive opportunities because you're trying to get the ball
Keeps you
back.
off balance, don't you think?
Yeah, it really does.
When we started seeing that big spin come into the game 15 years ago or so, that was one more thing you needed to factor in. Other than the line into the screen and the speed, now you had the spin, which definitely affects it.
And the modern players getting used to it now a little bit more, where they can, some guys are driving off of it, but boy, it really gets you.
Great digs, digs.
Oh,
look at that!
Look at that volley. That was a forehand.
He made him think he was going back. Great lob. Look at the cut. He loves that little cutter, doesn't he? What touch? What touch is that?
Wow. Another great point.
This is going to be some amazing paddle. I'm telling you. Look at the dig. That's going to be in. A little chip and dip there. No time to panic. Whoopsie.
So this is fast paddle. So Rod, what do you think a league player can get out of? What can they take away from watching this? Because they might look at this and say, you know what, I that's not my paddle that I play on a weekday. What can they still take though from this?
Well, I think that get close to the net. Stay close if they're driving a lot. Don't catch yourself lagging back by that service line. Get in there on the net, and if they do lob you, just run back and start it over off the screen. Keep your feet moving. And fast paddle, I mean, you got to have happy feet and expect the unexpected. And because there's going to be a lot of razzle-dazzle points here.
Yeah, I think the court coverage is a big part. The feet. To me, look at the player that's not hitting the ball. The player that's hitting the ball is still moving. There's always a bounce. There's always a movement, and I think that's a big part of it.
I think that's
to
an
your
important point because it's so much easier to move when you're about to hit the ball. It's a lot more difficult to move without having to hit the ball.
Yeah.
So club players can definitely take that thing away, and keep in mind that the basic principles are still the same. It's just that the pace of the game, the pace of the points, is obviously different. But the shot selection is still the same. Positioning is key, particularly at the net. And I think one of the things that we're going to see with players of this caliber is that they're rarely out of position. So that's why they get to every ball.
And one thing, league players are taught to do is use the middle a lot. You can see, because you have two lefty-righty teams, that side screen in the deuce becomes now a bailout spot. And you'll see the middle get, sometimes in some points, not used as much.
Exactly, and that's the big changes. The bailouts are now both out wide, where with two righties, your bailouts middle to the deuce court's backhand and out wide. So, great lob, tremendous offensive lob. Drew couldn't get it, and Chris was there, but just a little overhit.
Yep.
Yeah, as Alex mentioned, we got both teams are lefty-righty combo platters. They're able to play both sides, although they have their favorites, but they can flip it around if they have to.
And for everybody, all the club players watching, we get a lot of questions as pros about the lefty-righty combo, shot selection. Lefty-righty teams give you great flexibility when you're at the
Awesome.
net. Just figure out who you want to pick on in the backcourt. If you want to pick on the deuce court player, have the lefty take most of the overheads. If you want to pick on the court player, have the righty take the overheads. It's another net bailout by the server, by John Lubau. No need to come in and hit the first volley if you're not comfortable doing so.
It's almost like Broderick and Gambino are okay playing fast right now. They're
certainly
clearly
looks like
playing
it.
fast.
They haven't, lobbed as much as they did in the last match.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And maybe that's an adjustment from their last match with them at Nationals. Maybe they said, hey, you know what, because they lost, Gambino and Broderick lost to them, and maybe they felt like they needed to change the style of play a little bit.
I was actually a referee for that match, so I was on the court with the four players, and one of the things that surprised me a lot was how Lubau and DeRose won the majority of the long points in that match, because Broderick and Gambino are known for, the longer the point goes, the more the edge goes to them. And I felt that Lubau and DeRose beat them at their own game, so maybe this is some payback.
Yeah.
Well, Lubau and DeRose are not going to beat themselves. Like the one semi we saw, maybe, they made more errors. They got frustrated trying to hit the drop shots in the semifinal. Went to the well too much. This team will be solid, and it'll be a tougher road to hoe for Chris and Drew. But what was the score of that match, Alex?
Semis at the Nationals?
Yes. Or quarters?
It was
it semis?
actually the semis, and I believe it was 7-5-6-4.
Wow.
You're rarely
Nice.
gonna
Great
see
dig.
you're rarely gonna see a player looking more relaxed on the court than Steve DeRose, the gentleman with the maroon hat at the net on the outside. He's never rattled. He's never out of position. He's never panicking.
Well said.
Just
Yeah.
a great player and an all-around athlete.
I would give my two best poker faces to Steve DeRose and Brian Uihlein. I
Absolutely.
mean, there's no emotion ever.
You
You
cannot-
cannot read them. You cannot.
Cannot tell what the score
There's-
is.
His heart rate's low. He's just as cool as the other side of the pillow, as they say on ESPN.
One of the fittest 43-year-olds you'll see in your whole life.
And he missed a ball there. He should have made, but he
But look at him. Look at his expression.
Yeah.
That's Bjorn Borg on the paddle court.
exactly.
is.
What's the most important point in paddle, men?
The next one.
It's the next one. And so, oops. And I like what Chris did right there. Steve missed an easy drop shot, and he came right back at him right away. And for all those out there, if you find someone who made an easy error, go right back at them. A lot of times they're still thinking about it. Now, there's some definite confusion going on over there now with John and Steve.
Well, there's just so much speed there. They both want the ball. So that's going to happen from time to time. I think they handle it well. I mean, because it does happen probably, a few times a match, but that's their style.
And there'll be some miscommunication even for a team like Lubau and the Rose. This is a team that I think started playing somewhere around 2005, 2006. They've always played together. Always. They're one of the few teams that stuck with each other from the very beginning. I think we started counting this at the Nationals, and we came up with 3 teams, them being one of them. Because people change partners, fairly often, but those guys have stuck together.
So, Alex, do you think if you're building the prototypical paddle team, do you start righty-lefty or righty-righty, lefty-lefty? What would be your...
You know what? That's a great question. If you would have asked me this up until 3-4 years ago, I still would have said that lefty-righty is probably a bit of a liability. And it has to do with a very important thing at the highest level of the game is the lack of a backhand volley down the middle. Which teams can explore. But once Scott Estes and Mike Cochran won the Nationals in New York, and then Broderick and Gambino a couple of years ago, up until that point, no lefty-righty team has won the Nationals ever. And I firmly believe is because of the lack of a backhand volley down the middle. But teams have adjusted. So my answer to you, my long-winded answer is yes.
You would start righty-lefty?
Absolutely.
Well, evidence of today, like Rod had brought up, all 4 teams were...
And you look at the greatest,
Right,
not
lefty.
that it's totally relevant, but the top tennis doubles teams historically. Navratilova, Shriver, McEnroe, Fleming, the Woodies, Bryans. Good point here. Again, just roper doping, feeling it out. There's the waterfall overhead. Almost got over his head. Super spin overhead. Chris, a little roller. Nice. There's that cutter.
I think we're in for another match that's going to be real similar to that Nationals match. I mean, it was 5-4, Alex, you said there, and these are 2 really evenly matched teams. Both are difficult to beat, like 2-2. I have like 2 decisive sets. It's just these are 2 teams that just don't get beat easily like that.
It's a good matchup. Great return. On the rise, big surprise, as you like to say.
That's where you want Lubau and the Rose if you're playing them. You want them off the net closer to the service line. You want them to volley from the service line. If they're on top of the net, I said it before, they will take your best drive and not only make the volley, but hit a lot of drop shot winners.
Well, and I think also to add to that, you want any team off the net, right? But they're just so good when they're on top of the net with what they do with the ball that, it becomes so necessary to get them off the net. I mean, it'd be the same with any, I almost think, like a Brian Uline, any of these players that are, Mark Johnson has got a great drop shot.
And I think it has to do with the fact that both Lubau and the Rose can volley equally well defensively and offensively. There's players who stay off the net and they block everything back. We consider those defensive volleyers. But there's players who close in and they look to hit a drop shot. They look to hit the ball behind you when you're out of position. And Lubau and the Rose are equally great at both.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Alex. You look at Scott Mansager, David Ohlmuller, and Chris Gambino. They were more defensive volleyers. They never miss. They hit that reset button over and over and over. That's why I like Chris with Drew, who, to your point, Alex, Drew's that offensive volleyer on the net. Looks like John hits a few more forehand volleys than the average player, too. He gets that
He does.
Yeah.
little push thing that's effective.
Well, and I think the forehand is becoming just more and more popular. Not that it's the right shot. You know, as it's taught to league players not to use it, stay backhand volley discipline. You know, you want to have that, but these guys use it as a weapon to stuff balls into corners and to maybe stuff people at their feet.
Yeah.
They also like to drop shot with it, so they're just getting more touches on that side. It gets them in trouble, but I think they're obviously willing to take that gamble.
This has been an outstanding point.
Wow. Amazing. But if you don't have a drop volley in this game, when the ball's short, the backcourt team can actually back up, look for the waterfalls and stuff. So these guys got to respect every shot in the book. They can't cheat too much.
And that's why it's important to show all your shots to your opponents early on, even if you miss a couple.
Exactly. You gotta. I mean, the worst thing you could do in this game or any of these games is become predictable. Mix and match.
Absolutely. And you're going to see how it's an ongoing battle for both teams to get each other out of position. Once you create space that you can work with, all your shots become so much more effective. But until that happens, it's very, very similar to chess. Most of the shots that these players hit are actually neutral, where they're looking not to get in trouble.
Yeah, it's not an advantage, but it's not a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
Fake, Chris, that little fake. Throwing some body language in there, and that's
Oh, look at that move. That's a great move.
wow.
You know, on that ball, that's a ball into John's corner that Steve has to instantly be ready for, and he can snap off an overhead. I mean, quick decision. Well done.
Great volley.
There's that forehand again. Stick stuff in the
And
forehand.
again, that's where Steve will probably be going up the line again shortly, because
Yep.
Drew's where the return was. Most returns go cross court. Cheating a little bit there. Casual.
You can never accuse Steve DeRose for not being casual.
You see how John got up there. The main thing he tried to do is just not get hit. He ducked so that Chris couldn't peg him.
That's communication right there. He didn't go for a shot that wasn't his. He could have gotten it, but it wasn't his shot.
All right. Great shot. Well, perfect. Look at the communication. It's like
Got him off the net. That's when he drove.
It's like playing tennis in a closet. Like I said last match, you have to call it all out. Constant chatter.
Again, a lot of forehand volleys.
It's another outstanding point.
Wow. That is. I mean, this finals.
Spectacular.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is a great paddle.
Entertainment.
We're not that shocked, are we, though? Few more errors from Broderick that we're used to seeing from him.
That is for sure. I've seen him make more errors here than they have in the national final and last match combined, I think.
But again, most of them forced.
I'm just not used to seeing him make any. There's a little sneak attack. I
great
like
move.
that. I call
did
that the
too.
stealth bomber move.
I love
You know,
that.
that
Yep.
lob, then they start hitting that little push reset floater, and you can blitz on that
Yeah.
thing. I love it.
And, you know, the defense of that, too, is the key on that is whoever's not hitting the overhead, alerting their partner that, hey, incoming, you know, give them a buzzword.
Mayday,
Something,
mayday.
yeah.
Timing is key to making that move.
Well,
You wonder if Chris will use that overhead again, you know. he's already seen now he'll blitz. Will he go to that shot at any time later in the match?
Yeah, and I'm sure they looked like they had a little conversation right after it happened that, Chris might have said to Drew, "Let me know."
Flesh.
That is an amazing forehand this guy's got, and it works better for him now when he keeps it on the outer third of that court, not going cross court, but more up the line at Drew. Yeah, that tight little roller, Petey. That's good stuff.
Yeah. The roll overhead, your basic overhead is, or the way the overhead's set up these days is the roll is a big part of the overhead distribution. I mean, you're going to hit a lot of rollers now to corners and trying to hit creases, keeping the ball low, doesn't sit up as much. It's almost.
Oh my gosh, hands of God right there.
So
That's awesome.
Again, a very good drive by Chris Gambino, but unfortunately for them at the wrong moment.
Great anticipation. Steve picked his pocket, and Gambino's not happy. There's the return I've been talking about.
Called it, Rodney.
And I love it when they play the screenshot off the
that ball's
aluminum
good?
planks.
These
Yeah.
are two phenomenal volleys in a row by Steve DeRose. One complete touch, the other one also with touch but deep. 4-3 Gambino Broderick.
Yeah, it's in. What are we, about 15 minutes in?
I'll tell you exactly. We are 26 minutes in. It's 4-3 in the first set, halfway through the first semifinal.
That's right. And actually, to me, 26 minutes is a little long for fast paddle.
Exactly.
In a way. I mean,
That's a good point.
just shows how few errors these four players make. I mean, playing this style in particular. I mean, they play fast paddle and don't really make a lot of errors doing it.
Drew and Chris keep their forehands to the outside. A lot of teams do the opposite, but at the better levels, it doesn't matter. Whatever works best for the team. We've talked before how Drew likes to come over and try to take some two-handers up the middle and then baiting them to swing it over so he can jump over and rip that forehand or that tomahawk overhead he hits like a champ.
And if you're playing against Gambino and Broderick, you should force them to beat you with Broderick's backhand from down the middle where he doesn't have as much angle to work with.
On cue.
Because he is lethal moving to his left to the corner to hit a forehand drive or an overhead. Make him beat you when there's no angle. That's the one you do
There
not
it
want to
is,
give
right
up.
there.
Bingo.
But again,
Great point, Alex.
that another thing too is you wonder, are they almost, again, they don't mind inducing it. I almost think they probably are aware, of him doing that. Of his movement and everything. But I think, gosh, I don't think they even mind him making those moves.
What ends up happening at the higher level, Peter, as you well know, great volleyers bait backward players to drive when they're slightly out of position.
Yeah.
So you can exploit that space
Yep.
between them,
Mm-hmm.
or between them and the screens, and hit behind them.
Wow.
Look at
Wow.
that. Incredible
Point.
reflex volleys.
Trench warfare, Petey.
I'll tell you what. This is definitely not our grandfather's paddle game, huh?
No.
Or even our father's.
No, I just spoke with Alan Graham about the Chicago paddlescape in the last 25 years and how much it's grown, how the numbers have popped. But not only have the numbers popped, the game is still played the same with the court, same size, same scoring, but the game is played differently. With the big topspin balls, the kick serves. The old days, they didn't hit that kick serve out wide in the ad court. They just spun it in easy. But don't you think, Alex, this is what paddle needs to grow at a much higher level? More sizzle, more big points, big shots.
Absolutely, and I think that has primarily to do with more world-class tennis players sticking with the game.
Exactly.
Because historically, the retention rate for world-class tennis players for paddle has been like probably less than 10%. They don't give it long enough time to learn the game.
And do you think they were playing it the wrong way in the 80s? You know, they come in and they were taught to be more steady instead of just going big, although tennis wasn't a power game either.
Exactly, and I think a lot of it, I think that's a lot of truth to that, but I also have another theory that if you're that good of a tennis player, you have to have an ego. Otherwise, you're never going to be a great tennis player, and when you start learning this game, your ego doesn't, can deal with the fact that you might lose to players who you would never lose on the tennis court. So that's why you have a couple of so-called bad losses against guys who are 25 years older than you and who are wearing corduroys and drinking beer at the changeover, that a couple of those losses and that's it. You're done.
Good point. Also, quick point to make, John closes in on that net like just about no other. When he knows it's a drive situation, he is getting his belly button on the net.
And that's a point that I always make to my to my members at the Lake Forest Club. If you see a drive coming and you can read it, get on top of the net so you can take the net out of the equation. You might miss it deep or wide, but you're probably not going to miss it into the net. If you're off the net, you're going to do what John Lubau just did right now.
And once again, he loves that forehand, Peter.
Yeah, he does.
He hits more forehands than anyone else on the court, but he does it well.
He does, and it's, for me, watching, one thing I like seeing here is notice how you have a down the line, you have a cross court, and you have, let's say, through the middle. And when I say cross court, wide cross court, the player's moving it around, and you kind of alluded to it before about how you must go down the line, which is, I think, is absolutely necessary too. But if you watch when a volley's missed, generally it's someone guessed on one location and it went to the other, and there are a lot of gambles that these players will make. They're more than willing to gamble on certain plays.
If you watch Steve, if you focus on Steve only out there, when he's at net, you can see his anticipation skills and how he's always adjusting. He takes casual steps, back, sideways, front ways, but he is always betting on a certain shot coming. You can see it by his repositioning.
Can you teach that, Rodney?
That's a $100,000 question. Can you teach instincts? Yeah, you can get better at it, but some people just have a gift.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think if you have a sports background, you've played any sport growing up, you're probably going to increase the ability to have those instincts. If paddle's your first sport.
Yeah, I'd say Steve in basketball had a lot of steals. He knew where that pass was going, and he'd be there before. Look at that, getting his face out of the way very nicely.
Bit of a matrix move.
I'm going to guess he didn't turn the ball over too much either.
I think point guard, number one position on the team. Look at this.
Move.
Just no panic. Not even when the guy was like having a high ball from 6 feet away from him. There was no panic.
And how Gambino didn't win that point right now.
Unreal.
He is flabbergasted, and I am too.
Wow.
But it's like, to your point, Alex, here is Chris on top of the net, and Steve's not panicking. Cool as a cucumber. See, once again, there's never any conflict at net with Chris and Drew, because Drew's so much closer, and he just sticks his paddle in front of Chris.
This is spectacular.
This
paddle.
is. I mean, it's surprising. Drew and Chris, they're saying, "Hey, we're going to play fast. We're okay with this," and they're doing well with it.
Well, this could end up being like a lot of squash matches that I've seen of the top players in the world. It's like a marathon. It goes on for about an hour and 45 minutes, and then one team hits the wall physically, and then it's over. And now they've played a ton of paddle the last 2 days. Who do you think has more in the tank, Alex, right now, if you had to pick a team that could go further and longer?
Well, it's tough to go around the post.
Oh, and off the metal.
Perfectly legal shot.
Oh my
Doesn't get a lot better than that.
Do you see that?
Three points in a row. It's three of the rarest shots you'll see around the post. It hits the metal I-beam. You can play it off the metal. Didn't hit the screen.
Yeah.
And then the Widowmaker.
And then that's right. That's right. That was unreal.
You'll never see those three shots in a row again, possibly.
It almost threw off. Drew and Chris almost were thrown off by that. Just seeing Steve by himself there. I think they
He
weren't ready
doinked
for
it.
that.
He still got it. A little bit of a momentum switch at Petey right now.
Yeah. It's.
There's a couple points that.
Ooh.
As a beautiful swing, he forgot one minor detail, Alex. Do you ever not look at the ball?
Never.
You know, that it goes back to when I was talking about the drop shot earlier. Looking at the ball when you get. Oh wow, nice blitz.
That's a tough thing to do against Steve DeRose, to win a volley exchange against him. You got to pick your spots.
I think in the tank, I think Gambino and Broderick actually have a lot left in the tank. I mean, they went 53 minutes in their last match. I think yesterday they played. I think they had, correct me if I'm wrong, all two setters. I mean, they're going to be fresh, and maybe that's part of why they're playing fast. They're like, hey, you know what? We got plenty in the tank. We can. Because it does take, even though it seems like you had to play slow, you need a lot of energy for 3 hours, but believe me, this can be just as tiring.
And speaking of tiring, which team uses more energy? The team in the back or the team at the net men?
I think it all depends on how good the lob is. If the lobs are weak, definitely the team in the back is spending more energy. If the lobs are good, the net team is doing all the hard work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So if you can lob deep consistently, you can wear people down as you're doing less work in the backcourt.
I mean, I think the general thought too is that if you're doing stuff above your heart, it's like painting a ceiling. It's like the most tiring, uncomfortable thing in the world. And if the lobs are deep, like Alex says, I think generally though that to me is extremely tiring. At the net, the only thing that makes the backcourt tiring is if you want to set up your offense. How much do you want to set your offense up and move and be active and blitz and do offensive type things?
And we want club players to realize how the lob is probably the most important shot in the game, because this is usually lost a little bit because it's not a glamour shot.
Well, I think you make the case. I would say, in my opinion, you make the case that the lob here is the most important shot because they have so many other weapons. At the league level, to me, the volley. I think we all could have different answers on this, but to me, you have to be able to volley. If you can't volley, you can't. You just can't win. And it's. But these guys have such tremendous volleys that it ends up being a case where if you lob really well, it really can really
be
stand.
the difference maker.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's all situational, in these games. Here they've got all the tools in the toolbox, and they just got to figure out to use the wrench or the hammer or the screwdriver. And all I know is I think we're going to be here a while, boys.
It's gonna.
And I'm with you, Peter. I still think they might have more tank here with Drew and Chris just from the short matches. And I mean, the majors in tennis, the players who get through 3 straight sets to the semis, won the quarters 3 straight, round of 16, they tend to do better in the finals if they get there.
For sure. It's and if you're not tired, it's. I think it's just mentally too that you're willing to just fight no matter what because you're feeling good.
Yeah, you go and what Alex? What part of this is adrenaline?
You know what? I think a lot of it, especially for Johnny Lubau, because we keep talking about who's got more left in the tank. I'll tell you one thing: Steve DeRose, after this match is concluded, is probably going to run to the airport. So, and by run I mean jog. He's never going to get out of steam. I think Johnny Lubau conditioning might be a little bit of a factor for him, but the guy's such a competitor, and this is the finals of the charities. I really doubt that we're going to see a team lose because the wheels will come off in terms of stamina. I think they're going to be able to play 3 sets.
It was interesting on that blitz when Steve came in. He tried to go off speed to Chris there, and Chris saw it coming and stuck the volley. Usually Steve will take that and stick it, but he tried a little something different.
That was just the
Take it low?
first
Yeah,
set,
a little-
6-3 for Broderick and Gambino.
in by 30.
We're going to head off for a commercial break.
Howdy, partner. Up or down? Up. Down. Sorry, I'm serving.
Don't I know you from
Don't
somewhere?
think so, fella.
You know the steam has spin effect technology. I get your balls spinning more than the wheels of my pick-em-up truck. Yes. Okay.
That's it. Great shooting, partner. Doggone it. I got a bolt.
Hey, got your racket. It's all yours.
We're back. 2013 Chicago Charities Men's Finale. John Lubau and Steve DeRose versus Drew Broderick, Chris Gambino. First set's in the books to Gambino and Broderick.
Are we
6-2?
6-3?
6-3.
in
So-
40 minutes.
Are we going to see any adjustments here, Ron?
I think, again, more of the same from obviously the team that won the first set. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. No need to change a winning game plan, only a losing. And I think the other side, I really think, again, if they can keep their feet moving, win a few more big points, we can be going to a third set.
Yeah, I don't really see Steve and John changing too much. Keep in mind it was a 6-3, but it didn't look like a blowout.
Right. Exactly.
So, I think there's a couple of points here and there that make a difference. In my opinion, when you play within your level, there's always 2 or 3 points that make the difference per set.
100% true, Coach. And to Stefan Edberg's point, every match he ever played, he'd go back and find the one point, which was the turning point of the match. Specifically, remember it. And most of us that played a lot of competitive stuff remember most of what we did.
Absolutely, especially when we lose.
Yeah. I tell our kids always, when you win, you have fun. When you lose, you learn. You learn what you need to do to win. But so you can't lose out there. You're either having fun, Peter,
Yeah.
or
you're learning.
you're learning.
Yeah.
Everybody's a big winner.
I've been learning a lot.
You and me both.
Yeah, just how much learning is, is this,
How much learning is enough?
Yeah. Is there an amount that we're good? Or where we're good?
All right, here we go. New ball. Peter, does that change anything? A new ball?
Yeah, definitely. It's
what happens?
Well, it's a little easier to spin. It's going to play. It could play a little bit more live depending on the temperature. But yeah, it's definitely with these guys putting the spins that they're putting on it, it absolutely is something they like to see.
Tremendous point there. John went coast to coast a couple of times. Mr. Casual.
Is that
You
the
know,
walking half
Look at
volley?
that. And again, I guess I can go on record as saying the only player that I always said didn't have to bend his knees was Johnny McEnroe. Now we got Steve DeRose. He just casually picks those half volleys off his shoelaces. Doink!
Aiming right for the crease, he gets it.
You never hit it unless you aim for it, gang. That was not an accident. He touched it. Did he say he touched that?
You got to call that on yourself. And there's not a more honest team out there than John Lubau and Steve DeRose.
That's nice to hear.
They will end up calling balls against themselves on important points. I played them enough
Yeah.
to know that. And it's pretty much the only team that does that. But they're known
Yeah.
for it. You play against them, you do not need a referee.
Very friendly guys. See, here goes Broderick and Gambino, what they like to do a lot of. Take the air out of the ball and then force some sort of loose error.
And wear you down.
So, to the point, the team at the net at this level is working harder than the team in the back. And one love.
Well, I think it's funny based on how DeRose and Lubau have done these last few matches, coming back from being down, that it really you'd think the beginning of the second set is so important, but well, it doesn't matter with them. They at any juncture can just rattle off 3 or 4 games in a row. And I think if anything, if you're Drew and Chris, you have got to keep the pedal to the metal at this moment.
You do, because the Rose and Lubau, another great thing that they have going about themselves is they're great front runners. If they get ahead in the count, all their shot making ability gets compounded.
Yep.
And before you know it, you're going to lose a few games in a row and you have no idea what hit you.
I think Dane and Mark Johnson, Dane Smidgall would attest to that, right?
Absolutely.
What were they up in the third?
5-3 in the quarters last night, and then Mike Cochran and Scott Estes. Hope you guys are not listening. I don't want to put salt on the wound, but they were up 5-2 in the third set, and they ended up losing. So that's 2 back-to-back
Third set comebacks.
third set comebacks. That's a rare winner in the sport. People playing tennis will know that most of the points in tennis end with someone hitting a winner. Here, 95% of the points end up with the last player touching the ball, making an error.
2 let chords in a row for DeRose and Lubau. That can change momentum a little bit, Peter, don't you think?
Yeah, big time. I had to see 3 of those in one tiebreaker yesterday. And, what defense do you have for a let court? There is no defense.
Nope. The paddle gods have said.
Yeah, that's right. They've spoken.
They have spoken, and you're going to have to weather the storm for a little bit until it's your turn to.
Well, it's funny. It's you could say, well, hey, stand further off the net, but then do you really want to volley off the net? You want to be on the net when you're volleying. So it kind of ends up being something you just kind of say, well, hey, I'm not going to do on that.
And in the words of the great John Milbank, you don't get leg cords unless you drive. That's a rare mental mistake by Chris Gambino. The angle wasn't there.
Exactly.
forced
He
it.
generally would take that down the middle.
Absolutely.
Well, which is the paddle play. The tennis brain says angle it off. The paddle brain should be doing what? Middle.
Yeah, middle.
And that's
middle,
what I teach guys. I just try to teach and nurture a paddle brain, but it's hard once the tennis brain is dominant to get the brain to go into the paddle game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I like to say, I teach a vanilla style. I think we teach similar. I tell a lot of the students I teach that, let the game only get as exciting as French vanilla. This is, if you were to give this an ice cream flavor, what would you call this?
We're getting close to chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's nice when you have a vanilla and a cookie dough on the same team.
Yeah.
But nowadays, both players, there's a lot of double cookie doughs.
Right. And they're winning with it, which is
winning with
amazing.
it.
I mean, it's.
Because that firepower is tough. There's the whirly bird. It's the crease. You got to spin and just try to catch up to it.
And we want people at home to notice the difference in volleying techniques between Lubau and DeRose, who get on top of the net and they're looking to do great things with the volley, and most of the time they're able to. But then you have a guy like Chris Gambino who plays off the net, and all he wants to do with his volleys is block the ball back. He keeps the ball low. It's not drivable, but he never misses.
Ever.
So
Except
It's a
once every blue moon.
rare move by Steve DeRose, cheating over, trying to cut off a ball a little too far away from him. But what's interesting, that's game.
I think
That's
it's
game.
3-0
Yeah.
Gambino Broderick in the second set. So this has so far, we're at the exact same stage where we're in the semifinal earlier today.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that would make this a quick match in favor of Gambino Broderick would be if their tank, the tank from Lubau, I know you said earlier they were not going to get tired, but they have played a lot of paddle. Are they going to say to themselves, you know what, do we have enough to do this again? Because they're going to have to obviously do this in 3 sets to win the title today.
It's starting to tilt the wrong way for them. And they're going to have to find that extra gear.
So right now what I'm seeing a little bit again is Lubau and DeRose starting to press. And that's exactly what Gambino and Broderick want him to do.
What we mentioned in the last match, when a team has to press, what does that mean?
It means you're behind in the
It
count.
mean bye-bye.
You're done. Get your party favor at the door.
You're going to be in the shower very, very soon.
Just, if you want to win it, slow it down a little bit.
Well, and fast teams want it, they just generally, if they're down, they want to speed it up, right? You try to get it back quick. And I think, not even just fast teams, I think it's natural instinct to want to try to, to try to win 3 games all in 1 point. And it's just not going to happen that way.
What a smart shot for Drew. He saw him coming last second, went up the line, low percentage shot. Mind you, the overhead should go cross court and up the middle. He hits it right behind Steve. Unreturnable. Oh,
That court
let
serve.
court in a line. Paddle gods are starting to favor Chris and Drew. So solid on that volley.
I mean, and John crushed that ball. I mean, and again, another forehand volley that Drew had hit. So Rod, do you advocate the forehand volley in certain situations? I mean, if a league player is taught to be that backhand volley discipline as much as possible, I mean, obviously they're clearly showing that they can be successful with it. What's your feeling on that?
Boy, Johan Duran hits a ton of forehand volleys. Very well. My feeling is it's all grip related. You know, at the club level, if they're in a semi-western grip, they're going to frying pan it and windshield wipe it. And Roger Geary, with Craig Wilson, won a number of state championships in the 70s and early 80s with a windshield wiper volley. As long as you get right on top of the net and you can't get it down at your feet, fine. It's the first volley where you're in trouble on that. But here, you know, John's still in a continental grip, right? Or does he?
John actually
It's
has
over a little bit.
John
It's
has
close.
John
Yeah.
has an
Eastern,
Eastern grip.
yeah, I think. And he almost chokes up on
Yeah,
it
he
a
does.
little bit.
He holds it a little bit like the way you hold a ping pong paddle.
And that's why he hits more forehand volleys. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all grip related
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, and he does it awfully darn well.
And also, I think it has to do with how quick your hands are. Your hands have to be that much quicker to rely on the forehand volley. See, gave up the net. No need to come back to the net if you're out of position and off balance. Just give up the net.
Yeah.
That last drive that Chris Gambino hit, you cannot hit it any better. And I think he'd even clipped the leg cord. And Steve DeRose still made a great
Stuck it.
volley.
And then Drew did something you never want to do. You never want to miss a drive wide or in the net. If you miss long,
Yeah,
because
he-
remember the tennis brain will dominate. They'll hit most of the balls going out.
And he was kind of falling off a little bit on that. He was, moving to his left in the green.
That to me just looked a little tired.
Couple of loose points here from Gambino Broderick because they were up in this game to go up 4-0, and now it's game point for Lubau and DeRose to bring it back to 3-1, which would be a huge momentum shift.
I agree. I think this is a big game. I mean, and again, we know the runs that DeRose and Lubau can make, but I think it's a big game here.
They're definitely working John in the corner. That's the play. Look at that hit volley. Soft hands. Fill the hole. Nice rip, John.
First volley Chris Gambino missed since the late 90s.
3-1.
3-1. Broderick Gambino in the lead in the second set. They won the first set 6-3. And we control it up. Got a funny kick off the seam. John made a nice adjustment there. I mean, the strategy really is doing what they're doing in the back. You got to lob Drew. He's right on top of the net. Like right there, I think, see, I'd never try to drive through that as a general. When you can drive a ball to Drew, I'd lob him and try to get him off the net because he'll stuff you.
They almost have, both these teams almost have the same strategy. They're both, they have both hit into this corner. Even though there's a sun factor into the deuce corner on this side, they're both more than willing to hit to it.
Because you got a lefty over there.
And then the strategy is the same: get the lefty off the net, then when they're at the net, and drive to that player.
Yep.
I mean, they're almost mirror images.
Yeah. That's the shot that's very effective against Chris. A lot of teams are doing that to Broderick Gambino. Take the hard roller right at him, again with the intention to hit him. but at the very least, you
This
get
is awfully
you get
nice.
him and Drew out of position.
Shannon Vincent, thank you for
Thank
this
you.
water.
Thanks, Shannon.
Wow, it's awfully kind. Shout out to her.
One of the perks for commentating, you get
Yes.
free water.
What a get. Chris Gambino.
There he goes
Look-
again.
look- look-
and
look-
just
oh.
out of position.
Look at the half volley off the side screen, Petey.
Nice
That's-
recovery.
Oh, El Matador.
Awesome.
El Matador. Now, who
Look at
should have
that.
won this
Oh.
point 3 times by now? Look at this stuff.
Unbelievable.
This is how tennis or paddle could become a great game
Exactly.
on television.
I agree. It has to be this style.
Yeah.
And the right players.
You need
we
you
got
need
'em.
players with shot clocks. You know, and we always say that that's a bad thing. Don't play with a shot clock. What a point.
Yeah. No, yeah.
We say it's a bad thing, but you know, it makes it very
Or at
TV
least one,
friendly.
at least
Yeah,
one.
At least yeah, somebody. At least
I'd like to see you out there, Petey.
yeah. Hey, I would be boring. I mean, I don't want to see my vanilla.
Oh,
That's a seamer.
what happened there, Alex?
It hit one of the seams in the back court and gave it a funny bounce.
So for those at home, when they pull these screens tight, they gotta tie them together, and there's a seam that has some bumps on it. If it hits there, it will go crooked. See, now it's a cat and mouse game. They're lobbing. Why do you lob? So you can drive. You lob so you can drive. And they just gotta wait for the right time. Now, look at the.
Did that go past the line?
It did not go past the line, so that
That is
does
game?
count. Had that ball crossed the imaginary net line, it would have been Drew and Chris's point.
So 3-2.
3-2 DeRose and Lubau.
Right.
I apologize for making a mistake earlier on when calling the score. Many thanks to Bill Fiedler for keeping us on our toes.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill, thank you.
We cannot hear Howard sipe up in the chair in the specially designed soundproof booth.
Yeah, to me this match doesn't it get you have the feeling where it's like a long way from over.
Absolutely.
it's,
We hope so.
and
I
for-
don't mind watching paddle like this. I would watch this all
yeah,
day
this
long.
is entertaining.
What percentage of the drop shot retrievals are lobs?
I would say most of them.
8 out of 10.
Yes.
And one of the things that I really want to bring up about Lubau and DeRose, as talented they are and exciting as a team, the one thing that impresses me about them is how much more disciplined they become over the last few years. We started playing the game pretty much at the same time, and their first 2 years playing together, they were always extremely talented as they are now, but their shot selection was really, really questionable. And one of the things that you're noticing right now, there's rarely any miscommunication between the two of them.
Well, and to your point, Alex, when Brian Uline started playing, and he was exactly the same way. Shot selection. Had all the shots, but didn't know what to do with them. And it took him about a year and a half, and then...
Under your wing, I believe.
Sometimes.
Only a year and a half.
Sometimes, yeah. He was a quick study. I used to give the instructions, but after that, he became the teacher.
It's a perfect pace.
That is.
So you got to have a gear for fear here, so the players respect your drive. But it's a lot more about placement and finesse than raw power.
Well, you should use your fastball to set up your changeup.
Exactly.
Placement over power out there in this game. I mean, unless you can hit a big ball like this Alex Benchilla guy, you got to pick your spots. You got to go Greg Maddox. You Greg Maddox or you Randy Johnson.
And if you can do both, even better.
Then your
You-
opponents
you-
are in for a long day.
National champ.
So I like what I'm seeing from Lubau and DeRose in these last couple of games. The body language has changed a little bit. They have a little more spring in their step. And you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I see belief in their eyes.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
it's 4-2 now.
You are correct, sir.
DeRose.
Look at that. Look at John Lubau. The fastest he's walked in between serves.
And he's the X factor for my money. If he can get to the finish line, strong, and obviously you mentioned Steve runs. He's in tremendous shape. His resting heart rate's got to be in the 40s or 50s. Again, my strategy from Drew and Chris' standpoint, I'm when I can drive the ball, I'm going to lob John because he's always diving in tight. So you get him to change directions and back up, and you wear him down over time. The next half hour, you're going to wear him down because he's the vulnerable one in fatigue. I mean, if I had to nickname Steve, I think it'd be Silk. I mean, he is as smooth
Very smooth.
as any player I've ever watched.
I agree.
Who was the basketball player named Silk? I don't.
I can't help you there. I don't know.
Berko, you don't know an
I
answer to a
should.
sports
Yeah,
question?
I should know this. I'm sad that I don't know who was. It had to be someone like pre 1975.
It was Keith Wilkes from the UCLA Bruins in the 70s.
Okay.
You weren't born
That's-
there,
Yeah,
Petey.
my strength is like 75 to 95.
My bad.
Was he on those John Wooden teams?
Oh yeah. He won a couple of those.
Yeah, they were. I heard they were pretty good.
They figured out that one thing, which is how to win
Yeah.
all the time.
This is a good example of what we talk about with the runs with DeRozan and Lubau. I think they lost the first game of the second set, even,
Absolutely.
and all of a sudden they just won 4 of the next 5, and they can just rattle off games
Exactly.
like that.
And
Well-
then they can make even players like disciplined players like Gambino and Broderick with tremendously high IQs go for the wrong shot selection. They can do that to you.
Now there's a fatigue play right there. He didn't budge. He did not budge on that overhead, and then he missed easy lob.
Right, and I love that Q4 lob and that quadrant. Going cross court. For you league players, the toughest lob to defend is cross court out of the deuce, down the line out of the ad. That quadrant. I know with a righty-lefty team, it can be a little different. They'll defend it differently. But if you're playing, mostly righty teams, or as we play mostly righty teams, that area of the court very difficult to defend.
And that was a Q4 lob that John didn't react to. So,
Yeah.
like I said, that lob right there.
And you'd called that earlier, Rod. You said that. That was.
I'm going to try to just lob him up there, Q4.
Yep.
Right now, DeRozan and Lubau are baiting Gambino and Broderick to drive at him.
If I volleyed that well, I would too. Boom. Now transition shot. He didn't overhit it. He just pull out.
It's a great
It's like
shot.
recently, the last few points now, the strategy's been hit more to the ad, wait for the short one, and then hit the haymaker or the widowmaker to the deuce.
Yep. Is that wide?
It's wide. And this is an important game. This is 4-2 Lubau, DeRozan 40 all.
There's that old stat, the seventh game, 70% of the time, the team that wins the seventh game wins the set. And here's a perfect example. When it's 4-2, you get a 5-2 or 4-3. 4-3 can be a coin flip, 5-2. How about the team that gets to 5 first? How often are they winning a set? Probably.
Not very often in the quarters and semis that Lubau and DeRozan played.
Yeah, as long as you're not playing Duros and Lubau, your stat's
Trouble.
going to be okay.
Another great jump overhead. Perfect length.
This is the 4th game point in a row to go up 5-2, and in paddle, I still have no explanation for it. But these are huge turning points. You don't want to let opportunities slip because the momentum changes right away. And right now, Lubau and DeRozan are clearly having the momentum. It's a big difference between. I know I'm stating the obvious, and I know a couple of my friends will give me a hard time for it, but it's a big difference between 5-2 and 4-3.
Like I say, I'm going to make John hit a lot of overheads.
Look how well he closes. Whenever he sees any opportunity for a drive coming, he will have his belly button on top of that net.
And that's to my point. That's why you got to lob him when you think you're going to drive, because that will make his knees and legs rubbery sooner. And there
Look
he
at
is.
that.
I mean, see, right here, I'd lob him, not there. But
But then again, we're all great players from the booth.
I am the best I know back here.
What a
Get
point.
it out of the court.
And
Loss
that's-
of point.
And I think we're back to deuce.
Back to deuce. Deuce number 6.
Yeah, and then you get into the question I ask you guys: what is the longest game you've ever played in paddle? How many deuces?
I know, I can't remember that offhand. I think I've had a double digit, probably, around a 10 deucer for sure. I know the longest rally, someone estimated at 900 to 1,000 shots down in
I
Indianapolis
believe that.
a few years. Yeah, and it was it worked for a little bit for a few years, that strategy, but clearly not today's game.
Well, I mean, this game you get a lot of long games, and as I tell my students all the time, the longer the game, the more important it is to win it.
And I'll tell you another thing. Winning these long games is so important because it takes a little bit of the will from your opponents, and it's not just the scorecard that changes, but it's the confidence levels
And
of
the spirit.
of the individual players and the teams.
When you start breaking their spirit down by winning the long rallies, the 900 shot rally that Peter had, I hope you won that.
We did.
Well
We
done.
did.
Well done. And the long games, you get into a 6+ deuce game and you win it, you break the spirit a
Hey.
little bit of your opponents.
Peter, can I take a guess where that was?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Indy, you and Ed Granger against Goodspeed Mansiger.
You know what? That's a good. It was Ed Granger. It was against a team from out east that I don't know if plays anymore. Slobin and Lorenzini.
Oh, Lorenzetti.
Lorenzetti.
Yeah.
And it was a missed overhead by one of those gentlemen that ended it. And the reason I knew the count was Goodspeed or it was Mansinger was in the hut counting, and he told me the number.
You would know. Now, again, this point alone, John has dove in on that net. He's dove in there like 3 times, stuffed the volley back at him. Look at him. He's got to start heading home.
No need to move.
And look at that. Then all of a sudden, it's sort of like he's decoying, like he's tired. Then he comes out with a bomb.
He's got great disguise. I mean, they both have great disguise holding it.
He's there.
That's
there.
when you want to bail against Steve DeRose. Don't engage in those quick hands combat.
Trench warfare. You don't recommend that?
Not against him.
This game is going to be huge.
This is
I
huge.
mean,
This is the difference maker right
yeah, and what happens with these long games too is that the reason that there's such momentum shifters too is because both teams generally would have chances to have won the game, right? If it's a long game and it's going multiple deuces, each team had opportunities.
Absolutely.
And
to
then
win
a
that game.
power
That's fine.
failure there.
5-2, DeRose and Lubau.
And Chris is looking a little fatigued.
And at 5-2, maybe you're not as one to fight as you would at 4-3. And do you start preparing? What would you do here, Rod? This is a final. Do you try to make a strategic play based on how much energy you've spent?
Well, it's
and
paddle.
Did you start playing for the third?
No, not in this game. Paddle tennis, it's like Alex says, every point's the same, and you play, and you go, and if I'm Lubau and DeRose, I'm pretending like I'm down 5-2. This is a trap for them.
Yep.
On the other side, what should happen? They should tighten up, the competitive team, and this team got to resist the urge to lighten up
Right.
and start
Right.
coasting. Otherwise, it'll be 5-all in 10 minutes.
But notice, like what we were talking about at the conclusion of the first set, when we wanted to know what would Lubau and DeRose need to do to turn it around, they didn't really change much. They adjusted in a sense that they started executing better. But their game plan will always be the same. A couple of things here and there, very subtle, like Peter pointed out. Like maybe a few more lobs over to the deuce quadrant. But their game is the same. They're still doing the same thing. It's
Maybe they return, serve up the line a little more
Yeah.
or something like that. But their game won't change, and these two match up so well that it just creates good theater.
And they know another thing that some the casual observer or viewer might not know. Nobody knows their game better than Lubau and DeRose and Drew Broderick. They're all from New Jersey. They practice with each other. Like a couple of times a week. They've been doing it for so long. There's absolutely no secrets there. Absolutely,
I did not know that.
no
That's
secrets.
Interesting. to
They're
know.
very good friends off the court, and they probably practice more with each other than anybody else.
Good point. We didn't know that.
Insight.
Now this game, right away, there's 3 unforced errors. DeRose and Lubau, just easy errors. So they've let up just a little bit, lost their edge, and that's what you got to guard against at 5-2. Got to push him back.
What do you want to do when you hit these overheads? You do not want players to drive at you in the backcourt. And at this level, you certainly don't want them to drive at you when you're out of position. So that's what both teams are looking to do when they're hitting overheads.
But they're almost willing to, they don't want them to drive, but they're almost willing to sometimes bang those overheads hard on occasion
Exactly.
off and just have them drive.
They just did. Another Widowmaker
Another
overhead
one.
for a winner.
That's I think how many
remember.
is that now? We're looking at
Five-ish.
Probably 5.
And they're all working.
All 4 players are good enough volleyers that if they're in position, they don't really care if you're driving, but it's very important for them not to be out of position when you have an obvious drive. And by that I mean, probably closer to the service line than to the net.
There's an unforced error. Rule number 1, Petey, get the ball in play. Rule 2, keep it in play.
and stay out of the net. At least,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
stay out
never
of the
in
net
the
at the
net.
very least.
Never in the net in this game.
That's where you don't want to get caught. When when John Lubau just got caught when Chris Gambino drove that ball. If your feet are on the service line and someone has a high ball to drive, you're better off going all the way back.
Well, little momentum shift.
Yeah.
There's Q4.
There it is.
And you got Johnny in the overhead.
It's a great shot.
And I think they're willing. I mean, is it me or are they slowing it down a little bit? Just a little bit. Gambino
Little bit.
Broderick. They're just like, let's make them hit a few more lobs.
Remember how good they are at making adjustments. We talked about this earlier. They went down 5-2. They played a certain way. They don't like that on the scoreboard, so they
Yeah.
will slow it down at that point.
And they'll change.
And
They'll
I think
absolutely change.
that's one of the things that makes that team great. They're extremely good at making timely adjustments.
I mean, these are two teams that are extremely high IQs. I mean, they will. I feel like they'll read the situation even in the sense that okay, they know how to play their opponents, but they'll make adjustments based on okay how that team is playing that day, and
Sure,
they're really good
sure.
at picking that off.
Field managing.
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean,
Wow. There's the Q4.
It was
Peter.
good. There it is again.
That's the play.
One. It's still going. What a point.
This is amazing.
What a point.
Yep.
This
Q4.
is.
Q4.
There it is again.
Look at that.
That's amazing.
Look at that.
You know what's one thing that is kind of that I like to look at is when a lob bounces over a team's head. Look at what quadrant it always is in. It's always in Q. It's
Q.
not in Q3 or
No,
Q4.
it's Q4.
Always in that same quadrant every time.
That is my favorite place to lob.
that should be everybody's favorite
Yeah.
place to lob.
And the reason, for you league players wondering why that is, generally the player who's hitting all the overheads is very ready for anything at them or to their left. They know that that's theirs. That's kind of that Q4 area becomes a confusion area. And we're talking about the area that when you're lobbing cross court from the deuce or down the line if you're in the ad.
We were talking about momentum shifts earlier. We have another one in the last couple of games. Gambino and Broderick just won 2 games in a row. So
Quickly.
now they're serving at
Yeah.
4-5 in the second set.
I mean, it didn't take long, but
Yeah.
it just went, like you guys were saying, they're a little streaky, and they've made an inordinate amount of unforced errors all of a sudden.
But here's the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong. This might sound weird, but that's one of the other things. That's one of the other things that also makes them great. They don't get. They give you a lot of unforced errors sometimes in a row, but that doesn't allow you to get into a rhythm. So a lot of times what happens is that they give you 3-4 unforced errors in a row, and then they don't miss another shot for 10 minutes. It's very difficult
Yeah,
to play against
yeah.
a team like that.
Yeah. That's-
We had a questionable line call there. I'm not sure what happened.
They called it out, and then the call stayed.
It
What's
stayed.
it called? Did it stay?
Yeah.
Oopsie daisy. Sometimes Howard can't see up there.
I think it was a good call to fight, keep fighting. You said don't play for the third. They're right back in it, right? 5-4. So no reason to
Well,
pack it in.
and the score of this game is
I think we're at 30 love
Wow.
for Gambino Broderick.
I mean, this is huge.
They might pull a Lubau and the Rose on Lubau and the Rose.
Wow. Wonder if they're going to like being on the other side of it.
That's not. We're a point from 5-all.
Yes, we are.
Was that 40-30, I believe?
40-30, set. No.
Now it's point for
Get
5-all.
it to 5-all.
Stay back, blitz.
Great
Double
volley.
blitz.
And what a volley Chris hit to neutralize him.
They both read Drew Broderick, the server, right away that he's staying back on a serve.
Quadrant,
No panic.
There it is, there it is.
Keep it
Ready?
low. No panic again.
placement over power with Chris. He just keeps it coming, relentless. And that little blitz he did that time forced Chris
Forces
to nudge it out.
Absolutely.
That's why if you can follow up your drives with you blitzing or your partner blitzing, that's double trouble and greater chance of an unforced error. Or I guess that would be forced. That one looked a little tired.
It did.
Now footwork becomes so important.
Wow.
See again. If I'm DeRose, I'm doing a lot more of that right there.
And that's a shot that I've seen more in the last year or two. Just the hard down line at the net player. The net player is generally not mad. It's becoming a little bit more accepted. That to me was kind of a little bit like a baseball thing. If you hit a guy, gets ready, someone else is going to get hit later. And but now it's kind of just seems like, hey, it's just part of the game. That's part of the strategy.
Well, usually the way it works, if it happens at the E level, they write a letter to the board of the league. If it happens at the A level, they say nice shot.
Right.
So here it's all about nice shot. And if you get hit, it's your own fault.
That's right. And don't stand there.
It's interesting when you watch the best volleyers in the game, how much footwork and lower body is there in the volley? Virtually none. They just stand put and block.
Yep.
And that's one of the areas where tennis players have a hard time with the transition from tennis to paddle. They make the volley look too athletic. They try to do too much with it. They step into it. There's no need to. Just block it back.
Yeah, no stepping in this game. You just get close to the net.
5-all.
You don't see this, like you said, you don't see this often. Where DeRose and Lubau, they're such good front runners, and now all of a sudden it's 5-5. Doesn't mean they can't still win the set.
Let's see how they handle it. And then again, things are going horribly wrong for them right now. They need to stop the hemorrhaging and maybe slow down a little bit. I like that return right at the net player. Doink. Yep. And he gets it. When they hit those crease overheads, they're never winners at this level.
That's the shot you do not want to feed Drew Broderick.
There's another one. And he changes speeds on that.
Yeah,
doesn't
he does.
cuts
Yeah,
it, he
yeah.
flattens it out. He'll go Mach 1000 or just change it up.
I mean, it's almost with him, pick the lesser evil. Make him move to the middle to his right and beat you off of his two-handed backhand from the middle. Don't let him beat you moving to his left and hitting an overhead or a high forehand.
And that's a great point, Alex, because although in the finals of the Nationals against Parsons, it would have been Porter and Durant, he beat him with that two-hand roller up the middle. He hit a lot of leg cords that day, and because they were staying away from that tomahawk shot that we just saw. There's the roller. That heavy topspin to the deuce court is a money shot for those out there wondering how to play that shot. I give Scott Mansager a lot of credit. He brought that to Chicago years ago. He uses it pretty well.
Just look at this. Oh, gosh.
There it is. That's where you want to go.
15 all.
I think so. I think we should know, but
I mean, it is 15 all, 5 all.
that looked tired.
15-30. I like those starters.
The great thing too about the drop shots, one thing that league players try to do is win the point off of it, and I think these guys are trying to do that as well. However, you're also hitting it to bring someone out of position, and you have so many other things you can get out of it. You can get someone out of position, you can win the point, but you also tire somebody out. They want to have those sprints to the net all for 2 hours, running up every few points, and that's why I think Steve keeps going to that. It's kind of like
I'm
a
with
triple
you,
threat.
Petey. It creates holes wears them down.
6'5", Gambino Broderick. They just put together
A 4-pack.
yeah, 4-pack.
They were down 5-2. Now they're up 6-5.
I think about 12 minutes ago, we are like almost looking at a third set.
Yeah, but then, and this is right when you think like DeRozan Newbound are gonna go away though. This is the time right here that
Absolutely.
would not be surprised if they win this game. It goes into a breaker.
Well, great competitors. When are they the most deadly?
When they're down,
When they're
trying
backed
to close
into
them
the corner.
out.
When
Yeah.
they're backed into the corner and they have no other option but to elevate their game. We've all known those guys. Played them. You got to kill these guys. Otherwise, would you use the boa constrictor, Alex,
The
earlier
boa.
today? Gotta keep squeezing. Trouble. Again. 15 love Gambino. 3 points away from the match.
Match can be over in the next 2.5 minutes, or we can be looking at another hour and 45 minutes.
And we've all been there. He's
I'll
hitting
just
the
kinda-
wall.
Yeah, two loose errors, too uncharacteristic.
Well, I mean, look what he's played in the last 18 hours.
yeah,
Two
lot of
mega
battle.
matches.
It's a great shot, great spot.
Left hip.
great location.
Now he's got to dig deep, get some oxygen. Just
Point.
what a short backswing John has. He's got that short, tight backswing on that forehand. Little Richie Mayer like just holds it low, rolls.
Steve's is kind of similar too. Holds it, fires. Can't
There's
really
that.
tell. Like, yeah, nice. Awesome. This is a great point.
He just doesn't mess with DeRosa's corner, does he? Drew.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't even try to slough one in there. Ice him out, maybe catch him on his heels.
Exactly. And if anything, if you get a drive, maybe he'll stuff a volley in there, but that's about it.
Exactly. There's one, because that's why right there.
Yep. Yep.
That's 2 leg cords.
These guys are even
Volleys.
volleying back liquid.
That's 2 in this
That's
point, yeah.
unbelievable.
You know it's coming. There, he tried one there. Don't get, no. And that's what Chris is trying to do. He's taking dead aim for that crease. What a volley. It's important to stay low at the net when you're the wall receiving the bombs. Get low, bend the knees.
Did he get it? Oh, we got it.
See?
Right into Q4. What a point. We're approaching 50 shots here for this rally.
There we go. Again.
I think not a bad move, trying to cut off the volley.
That was a great move. He
Just
just maybe a hair tired.
a little power outage.
Power.
Double match
outage.
point.
Okay, I like this here though. I like what they're doing. Talk through it like a pitcher and a catcher. Get on the same page. There we go. Great volley.
Oh, he got it. What a get. Tremendous get by John Lubau.
Now if they win this point, he's got a lot of heart. John does. He is great lob, higher than the lights on those screen lobs. Should get him up as high as the lights.
Oh,
Oh,
he got
he dig it off the shoe tops.
He willed that one over
Yeah.
And he's starting to make some noises in that corner.
Oh,
Game, set, match. Gambino.
wow.
Broderick.
Wow, what a match.
7-5.
That
That's the
was
second charities titles for both of them as a team.
as a team.
Well
Yeah, and-
played. Good fun with you guys.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you,
It
sir.
was a lot of fun and kind of what we thought. I mean, very even match.
Yep.
Good points.
Yep.
I mean, that's a 3 and 5. Even felt like 6 and 6. I mean, it was.
What was the
And-
final time on it about?
Yeah,
I can give you that in a second.
I'm gonna go hour and a half on that.
We are looking at an hour and 25 minutes. Another good call by Petey Burka. And you know what? Great job by Lubau and DeRose. Another great run.
Yeah, they're awesome.
You know, they're way past the stage where people think that they're overachieving. That was the case up until 3 years ago or so. They're one of the elite teams in the game. They know it. Everybody else knows it, and they're proving it with pretty much every single tournament they're playing.
Yeah,
They are, and they're not going anywhere for a while.
They're not.
I think they have something. Well, they have something to prove based on last year, and I think they lost these guys. They wanted to,
Right.
prove that they,
Absolutely.
they're good enough not just to win this tournament, but or not just to beat those guys, but to win this tournament, and they did. They played well.
That's the first time I've watched one of their matches from soup to nuts, and I'm a believer. They could win a national championship
Oh,
very
absolutely.
easily.
You're talking about DeRose Lubau.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
if John would maybe get just a little tighter physically, look
Yeah.
like you two boys.
They-
look like
they-
you two boys. I think they got a really good chance.
I think so too. I think they're absolutely, last year, but going on that run to the final, built a huge amount of confidence. And then, Gambino and Broderick, they're going to be considered, I think, one of 3 or 4 teams that could really legitimately win
absolutely.
it.
They're number one in my book.
Yeah.
Because obviously Johan and Parsons are deadly, but this team has that
got
combination
it.
of old
They've
school
got
and
it.
new school.
Absolutely.
But the biggest problem we're going to have today with this match, as I said from the get-go, actually is how we get Howard Sipe out of that chair.
Safely. That was our biggest concern going in.
I don't even want to watch.
I think we need to stand there, out there.
Hey, Mark,
Parsoni.
go help Howard out of that chair, will you? He's going down. Yeah, I think that's the toughest part of the whole tournament right there.